Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a special deep dive from us here at Snarful Solutions Group.
Yes, welcome.
Today, we're focusing on a situation that, has a lot of people asking questions, important questions, especially about something as personal as their own genetic information, the bankruptcy of 23andMe.
Yeah, this is a unique set of circumstances here where we have a company that was built on the intimate details of millions of people's DNA, and now it is facing financial collapse.
Yeah.
And this immediately brings up those concerns for you, the listener, about what happens to all of that data. Your data.
Exactly. I mean, you might have taken a 23andMe test years ago.
Right.
You were curious about your ancestry, maybe health predispositions.
Right.
Maybe you found long-lost relatives through the service, like Jessica Lippincott in Wyoming, who discovered 49 half-siblings. 49 through the service. Or perhaps you gained, some valuable insights into your own health risks, as Hannah Snitko did. But now, with this bankruptcy, the landscape has shifted dramatically.
Absolutely, yeah.
And our mission today is to unpack what this bankruptcy means for you.
Yeah.
Particularly regarding your personal data, your privacy, and the fundamental trust you placed in 23andMe. We've gathered information from news reports, expert analysis, and even the perspectives of individuals directly affected to give you a comprehensive picture.
That's right.
So let's start with, how 23andMe got here. I mean, it wasn't always doom and gloom.
Right.
They were pioneers in this field.
Indeed they were. 23andMe was founded on that, very innovative idea of direct-to-consumer genetic testing.
Mm-hmm.
And they quickly attracted a huge customer base.
Huge. Yeah.
We're talking around 15 million customers.
Wow.
Each paying, about $100 for that service.
Okay.
And by 2021, the company reached a peak valuation of $6 billion. So, they saw a significant rise in a really relatively short period of time.
So what went wrong? I mean, if so many people were buying these tests, why the financial trouble?
Well, the core challenge appears to have been generating that sustainable revenue beyond that initial test purchase.
I see.
As noted in the Cowboy State Daily, people generally only needed the one test.
Yeah.
Right. So, think about it. Once you've kind of explored your ancestry and those initial health predispositions, there's often not a recurring need for that same service.
Mm-hmm.
And so their attempts to then leverage that massive genetic database through partnerships with, big pharmaceutical companies like GSK, for example,
right,
for research purposes, that didn't bring in those consistent financial returns that they were likely hoping for.
Okay.
They also, made ventures into selling health services and even exploring GLP-1 medications. But these efforts didn't manage to really turn the tide.
Okay.
So it really raises an interesting question for other data-driven businesses.
Yeah.
How do you move beyond that initial data collection to create lasting value for both the company and the consumer?
Yeah. And here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener.
Okay.
Beyond just the business model, a major event happened that significantly impacted trust.
Okay.
And likely played a big role in their downfall.
Mm-hmm.
The 2023 cybersecurity breach.
Yes. This is a critical point to really consider. Because that breach, it compromised the sensitive data of approximately 7 million individuals.
7 million, wow.
Yeah. And, this event, as reported, it really damaged public trust and consumer confidence. And, it makes sense, right? When a company holds such personal and really irreplaceable information, such as your genetic code, a breach of that magnitude, it really has profound consequences for that relationship with its users. And it's not a closed chapter, unfortunately.
All right.
As of March 2025, 23andMe still faces 35,000 outstanding claims related to this breach.
Wow. So this erosion of trust, I imagine, likely made their attempts to raise further capital or secure profitable partnerships even more difficult, contributing to the eventual financial crisis.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair assessment. It certainly couldn't have helped.
Okay. And then, adding to this instability were founder Ann Wojcicki's repeated unsuccessful attempts to take the company private.
Right.
Which Tech News Weekly really highlighted as a sign of, some internal challenges there. And then fast forward to March 2025, the news broke.
Yeah.
23andMe's market valuation had plummeted to just $50 million, culminating in the Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing on March 28th.
A dramatic fall from grace, right?
Huge fall.
From that $6 billion peak.
So the bankruptcy announcement obviously triggered a wave of reactions, didn't it? I mean, we saw two very different responses highlighted in Wyoming, which really illustrates the spectrum of feelings out there.
Precisely. On one side, you had millions of customers like Hannah Snitko and Cheyenne who immediately tried to delete their accounts and their genetic data. They were deeply concerned about what might happen to their information under new ownership. As Hannah herself put it, we just don't know what will happen with it. There have been no assurances yet of the security of our data and what will happen going forward. And I think that feeling of uncertainty and that desire to regain control over their personal information is a very, very understandable reaction for many of you listening.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy for those trying to delete their data.
No, not at all. The sheer volume of deletion requests caused significant website issues, making it difficult for many people, including Hannah, to actually complete the process.
Right.
And even receive confirmation. Yeah, she noted that the site was very slow due to increased traffic, and those confirmation emails, they never arrived. And this really, this practical difficulty in actually exercising their right to delete their data only amplified the anxiety and frustration for users.
Yeah. But then you have the other perspective, like Jessica Lippincott from Thermopolis.
Yeah.
Her experience with 23andMe was life-changing. It led her to her biological father.
Right.
And 49 half-siblings.
Wow.
So her view on the bankruptcy is quite different.
Yeah, absolutely. Jessica has actually chosen not to delete her data.
Interesting.
Her hope is that a future buyer of 23andMe will actually utilize the genetic information for what she sees as really valuable purposes.
Okay.
Things like medical research and even solving cold cases. So she's very clearly weighing the potential benefits against those risks.
Yeah.
And she believes that any new owner would still be bound by existing laws governing sensitive genetic data. As she put it, if my data can be used by a future company to help other people, I'm all for it. I'm not going to delete it. So her perspective really highlights that potential for societal good.
Yeah.
That some individuals see in the collection and use of this type of data.
Okay, so with 23andMe now in bankruptcy, what's the actual process regarding this vast amount of personal genetic information?
Yeah.
Your information as the listener.
Well, so the bankruptcy court in St. Louis has approved the process of seeking a buyer for 23andMe. Bids from potential buyers were actually due by May 7th.
Okay.
And a hearing to really examine these potential sales is anticipated in June 2025. So this Chapter 11 bankruptcy process is designed to allow a company to reorganize its finances,
right,
while protected from those creditors. And in this case, it includes exploring a potential sale of the company and its assets. And of course, that includes that massive database of genetic information.
And this idea of a sale, I imagine, is what's causing a lot of the anxiety.
Right.
I mean, who might buy 23andMe?
Right.
And what could they potentially do with all that data?
Those are very valid concerns.
Yeah.
Experts like Geoffrey Fowler from the Washington Post, speaking on Tech News Weekly, have emphasized that genetic data is uniquely sensitive because it represents information you cannot change and could have unforeseen future implications.
Wow.
Including, potential insurance discrimination or misuse.
That's scary.
Yeah, and the sheer volume of this data, as Suzanne Bernstein from the Electronic Privacy Information Center pointed out, makes this a very unique situation with potentially far-reaching consequences depending on, who acquires it.
Right.
And for what purpose.
So are there any safeguards in place for consumers like you during this process?
Fortunately, yes. There are some legal frameworks in place that offer some level of protection.
Oh.
Things like California's Consumer Privacy Protection Act, the CCPA,
Okay.
And other state genetic privacy laws. These give you the right to request the deletion of your data.
Okay, that's good.
Also, an attorney with the U.S. Trustee Program, which oversees bankruptcies, has asked the court to appoint an ombudsman specifically to oversee the sale and help protect consumer data.
Oh.
And, the company's attorneys have also pointed out that U.S. bankruptcy law itself requires a buyer to adhere to existing privacy policies.
Mhm.
So these legal mechanisms do offer some level of protection. However, as Hannah's experience showed, the practical application of those rights isn't always seamless.
Right. So it's good to know that there are some protections, but it's still a time of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Even 23andMe themselves have stated that customer data privacy will be an important consideration in any sale.
Right.
But, it really highlights that delicate balance
Yeah.
between, business interests and the rights and expectations of individuals
Okay.
like you who entrusted them with their genetic information.
Absolutely. And it's something that we all need to be more aware of.
Yeah. This whole situation really makes you think about the broader implications, for you, the listener, of sharing such personal information, right?
Absolutely. 23andMe's bankruptcy serves as a very critical reminder for you about those long-term implications of sharing personal data.
Yeah.
Especially something as fundamental as your genetic code. As Suzanne Bernstein from the Electronic Privacy Information Center noted, the scale of highly sensitive data that 23andMe holds is really unique. And federal law offers limited specific protections for genetic information held by private companies outside of healthcare and employment context, like IP and GINA.
Right.
Anya Prince, a law professor at the University of Iowa, she echoed this as well, noting that federal protections are quite limited beyond those specific areas. And that leaves, a bit of a gap in how your genetic data is protected in those commercial settings.
So what can someone like you listening who use 23andMe or is considering genetic testing in the future, take away from all this? What are some proactive steps that you can consider?
Well, the key is to be informed and proactive. Really understand your rights regarding your data. Many experts recommend that, concerned 23andMe customers should consider deleting their data, requesting the destruction of their saliva samples, and revoking any permissions for research use. And this is also advice that California's Attorney General, Rob Bonta, also gave.
Okay.
And for those considering genetic testing in the future, this situation really underscores the importance of carefully reviewing a company's privacy policies, really understanding how your data will be used,
Yeah.
and considering those long-term implications before sharing such sensitive information.
Yeah. And this situation highlights the ongoing need for stronger consumer privacy laws, especially as more and more companies collect and hold this type of sensitive information. As Hannah Snitko put it, even though she initially enjoyed the service, she now feels a loss of control over her personal genetic data and would think twice about such services in the future. It really underscores the evolving relationship between individuals and the companies that hold their most private details.
Yeah.
And the need for regulations to really keep pace with these technological advancements.
Absolutely.
So this deep dive into 23andMe's bankruptcy shows just how complex the intersection of, your personal data, technology, and business can be.
Yeah.
And it underscores the importance for you, the listener, to understand not only the potential benefits of services like genetic testing, but also the potential risks and what happens when things take an unexpected turn.
And the contrasting reactions of individuals like Jessica, who sees potential for good in her data being used, and Hannah, who prioritizes deleting her information due to those privacy concerns, really highlights the diverse perspectives and valid questions surrounding, your ownership and control of your most personal information. There isn't really a one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
And your comfort level and priorities will really guide those decisions.
Absolutely. So ultimately, the situation with 23andMe raises an important question for all of you listening. In an increasingly data-driven world, how do we balance the desire for knowledge and convenience with the need to protect our privacy and maintain control over our sensitive information? It's something to really consider as you navigate the ever-evolving technological landscape.
Yeah, it really is. And we are here to help here at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
Great. Thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
And we'll see you next time on Connecting the Dots.
Bye.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.